Hey guys, tonight we fall asleep under a sky that has just lost its invisible protector, the Earth's magnetic field. The planetary force field you never think about has flickered out. No bang, no drama, just gone. You don't hear it vanish. You don't see anything happen at first, but you feel it. Not in your bones, not yet, but in the subtle way the world starts to feel off. Birdsong seems misplaced. Your phone loses signal a few more times than usual. A plane overhead reroutes mid-flight. And still no alerts go out. It's not like a volcano erupting or an earthquake cracking the sidewalk. It's quieter, stranger. You feel like you've entered a slightly wrong version of the Earth. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step outside and look up. The stars blink back as usual, but you can almost sense something behind them, something pressing closer than it should. Without Earth's magnetic field-charged particles from space are no longer being redirected around the planet. They're coming straight for you. They've been doing this for billions of years, but until now, you had a shield. This shield generated deep within Earth's outer core, where molten iron spins around like some giant cosmic smoothie, has been running non-stop since long before humans stood upright. It's invisible, but mighty. It blocks cancer-causing radiation, deflects solar flares, and even helps birds and whales know where the heck they're going. You're living in a moment no human civilization has ever faced directly. The last time Earth completely lost its magnetic field was possibly during a polarity flip over less than 180,000 years ago. But even then, a partial field still lingered. What you're experiencing now is a full shutdown. No field, no compass, no protection. And yes, you probably won't survive doing this. Scientists have long warned that the magnetic field has been weakening for centuries. The South Atlantic anomaly, a weird dip in the field strength over South America, is just one example. But now, the entire field has gone dark. And you, my friend, are stuck in the beta test version of Earth 2.0. Your watch doesn't know where north is. Your compass does that thing where it spins wildly like it's possessed. And your dog. He's pacing in slow, confused circles, trying to find a direction that no longer exists. Dogs, after all, have magnetoreception too. One of those fringe facts that sounds fake until you read about it in obscure veterinary journals. Back inside, your smart devices begin throwing tantrums. GPS-based apps stop working. Maps refuse to orient. Your car's navigation thinks you're somewhere in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And as you try to reset the system, you notice something else on the news, a global pattern of flight reroutes. Commercial airlines are avoiding polar routes entirely. In the early 2000s, pilots already had to make adjustments due to high solar activity near the poles. But now, those adjustments are full reroutes. Northern Lights auroras have started appearing in strange places, lighting up the skies of Miami, Cairo, and Bangkok. It's beautiful, but it's also the first sign of something deeply unnatural. You remember reading once that Mars, our rusty neighbor, used to have a magnetic field too, but it lost it billions of years ago. Without it, the solar wind slowly sandblasted away its atmosphere. That's why Mars looks like an abandoned warehouse, now cold, dry, and eerily silent. And now, Earth has started down the same path, just a bit more slowly. The scientific community isn't sleeping tonight. Everywhere from CERN to NASA, researchers are scrambling for data, and nobody agrees. Some say this is a magnetic reversal in its early stages, a natural process that happens every few 100,000 years. Others insist it's something we triggered climate change deep, drilling electromagnetic pollution. And a few fringe thinkers mutter about ancient disasters and buried technologies, pulling out 1970s books filled with yellowing pages and way too much underlining. But you're just lying in bed, listening to the faint buzz of your ceiling fan, trying to convince yourself that nothing has really changed. And yet, the truth is, you're now exposed. Everyone is. Without the magnetic field, the Earth is like a castle without a moat. Cosmic particles that once bounced off like tennis balls now drift straight down through the atmosphere. Most won't hurt you, not immediately. But over time, they'll begin rewriting the rules of biology, technology, and even weather. Tonight is just the beginning. By the time morning rolls around, the sun rises like normal, but everything else starts to act off. You step outside and feel a strange sharpness in the air. It's not hotter, it's not colder, just edgier, like the light is a little too white, like your skin is being watched. That's the solar wind saying hello. It's been waiting for this moment. Solar wind sounds poetic, but it's really just a high-speed stream of charged particles flung from the sun at hundreds of kilometers per second. Normally, Earth's magnetic field blocks most of it like a bouncer at a high-end club. Now, the velvet rope is gone. Everyone gets in. And you're standing in the middle of the dance floor. At first, you don't see the effects. The particles are invisible, tasteless, silent. But they're already striking the ionosphere, slamming into atoms, charging up the atmosphere like a massive, invisible battery. Power grids start buzzing with weird frequencies. Static builds up on your phone screen even when it's off. Long-distance radio signals skip and stutter like a broken mixtape. You scroll through social media and see videos, dozens of them, of dazzling auroras in places that have never seen them. A guy in Brazil films the sky swirling with greens and purples. Kids in Kenya are watching waves of light pulse over Mount Kilimanjaro. Everyone's excited. It's the most beautiful apocalypse no one understands yet. But deep down, scientists are already sweating. When the sun is calm, solar wind just creates light shows. But during a solar flare, a coronal mass ejection. That's when it gets serious. We've seen this before. Remember the Carrington event in 1859? Telegraph wires burst into flame. Operators got electric shocks. Aurora borealis lit up the sky in the Caribbean. And that was with Earth's magnetic field intact. Now imagine that level of solar tantrum, but without any planetary shielding. Your local power grid might hold up for a few days, maybe a week, but transformers are already getting hit with strange overloads. Surge protectors in data centers across Europe and Asia have started quietly failing. Satellite uplinks drop intermittently, like they're blinking in confusion. GPS timing goes fuzzy fractions of a second off, but that's enough to ruin precision systems. And the real horror. It's happening on the dark side of the planet, too. Solar particles don't politely knock. They wrap around the Earth, funneling in through the polar regions, but also scattering down over the entire surface. Normally, your atmosphere handles most of the mess, but without the magnetic field, it's like using a napkin to stop a fire hose. The upper atmosphere starts to ionize. Layers peel back. The shielding is thinner. Not gone yet, but leaking. And here's where it gets weird. Your blood contains iron. So does your brain. There are entire papers, yes, real scientific journals, suggesting that solar storms might affect human behavior. Increase in anxiety, sleep disruption, even spikes in hospital admissions during geomagnetic events. Scientists still argue whether those correlations mean anything, or whether it's all just pattern seeking. But tonight, you toss and turn. The light sneaking through the curtains seems wrong, a little too green. By now, aviation authorities have grounded most flights over the poles. You remember that polar flights already avoided strong solar activity before. In 2012, Delta rerouted flights to avoid radiation risks. But now, that's every flight, every day. Passengers don't know why. The pilots do. Meanwhile, high-frequency communications begin falling apart. Military submarines can no longer receive updates. The Navy scrambles to switch to alternate protocols. Ham radio enthusiasts buzz with excitement, realizing the atmosphere is now their playground, until it starts frying their equipment too. And still you go about your day. You notice animals acting twitchy. Pigeons refuse to land on rooftops. Bees swarm in spirals. A dog stares into the sky and growls at nothing. Your phone's weather app insists it's clear, but you see strange ripples of cloud forming above. In some remote observatory in Antarctica, a researcher writes in their logbook, "I don't like the way the air feels." A small comment buried among sensor readings, magnetic anomalies, and unread email alerts. But no one's listening, not yet. Meanwhile, some YouTubers are already capitalizing. Magnetic field apocalypse. What the government isn't telling you. Videos rack up millions of views. Fringe channels claim this is proof of ancient prophecies or alien interference. One guy builds a Faraday cage in his basement and claims his brain is now shielded from quantum government waves. As usual, the internet isn't helpful. Yet somewhere deep in a cave in France, a scientist draws magnetic field lines in chalk. She's been studying paleomagnetism, the ancient record of Earth's magnetic field trapped in rock. She reminds her viewers that the Earth has reversed its field many times before. This might just be a blip, she says gently. But she also admits something else. This isn't just a reversal, it's a disappearance. And we've never seen that. Not like this. It takes 3 more days for the satellites to start dropping, not all at once. Not in a dramatic, cinematic rain of fire. Just one here, another there, quietly. Like birds falling from a poisoned sky. You're watching a weather app load, and it just doesn't. The satellite images aren't updating. Then your friend messages you. Dude, I think Google Maps just forgot what streets are. It's not a glitch, it's a pattern. Most people don't realize how utterly reliant we are on satellites. GPS isn't just for directions. It's for farming equipment, global shipping, stock exchanges, emergency services, air traffic control, the synchronized heartbeat of the modern world. And now, that heartbeat's going irregular. Solar wind is unrelenting, and with no magnetic field to divert it, satellites are absorbing particle radiation like a metal sponge soaking up acid. Circuit boards degrade. Solar panels malfunction. Microprocessors glitch. And once a satellite starts tumbling uncontrollably, it's game over. Gravity does the rest. Some satellites burn up harmlessly in the atmosphere. Others Especially older junk survived the plunge just long enough to leave glowing streaks over cities. People cheer at the pretty skyfire. They don't know they're watching communications die. The International Space Station, still up there, still manned switches to emergency shielding protocols. The astronauts go into a heavily shielded module and stay there. NASA issues a statement. We're monitoring the situation closely. Translation: we don't know how long the ISS will last. Do you remember Skylab? It was the US's first space station, and it came crashing back to Earth in 1909. No one died. Australia fined NASA for littering. It was funny then. This time, no one's laughing. And it's not just satellites. Space junk behaves differently now. Without magnetic drag and stable orbits, pieces of defunct rockets and broken solar wings begin to veer unpredictably. The orbital traffic jam becomes a war zone. Kessler Syndrome. The hypothetical scenario where space debris collides and causes a chain reaction is no longer hypothetical. Still, governments try to keep things running. Ground stations beam corrections to remaining satellites. New shielding protocols are attempted. But even Earth-based observatories are struggling. High-altitude particle showers distort telescope images. Astronomers start to say things like, "The universe looks fuzzier." One fringe researcher claims it's not just distortion, it's perception. He believes our brains exposed to higher radiation levels are subtly altering how we see light. Cosmic color shift, he calls it. Most scientists laugh him off, but he posts a TikTok from a high-altitude balloon that shows a strange hue in the upper atmosphere. People start calling it the ultraviolet halo. Scientists still argue whether solar radiation is directly changing atmospheric color, or if it's just our instruments failing. Either way, something's off. Back on Earth, major GPS-dependent services collapse. Autonomous vehicles park themselves and won't move. Cargo ships lose tracking. Banks with high-frequency trades dependent on GPS timing start seeing decimals drift. You hear the phrase, timing desynchronization event on Bloomberg, which is code for someone just lost billions. Air travel becomes guesswork. Without satellite coordination, air traffic controllers are using radio and radar, only old-school manual separation. Fewer flights, longer delays, more near misses. You check the sky again. Another satellite falls. This one visible for a full 10 seconds. It leaves a burning scar across the atmosphere that fades into violet light. Somewhere in rural Canada, it lands with a thud in a frozen lake. Amateur drone footage captures the wreckage, a blackened cylinder steaming in the snow. News outlets rush to reassure. Nothing to worry about. Space agencies are responding. But your phone pings a new app update. Offline Maps v1.0, just in case. That just in case hangs in your head longer than it should. And then come the military repercussions. With GPS disrupted, missile guidance systems go blind. Nations switch to inertial navigation, which is less accurate. Tensions rise. Miscalculations increase. A submarine in the Pacific surfaces early because its communication window failed. A drone over the Middle East crashes into a civilian compound due to navigation drift. No one claims responsibility. Governments start launching emergency microsatellites with hardened shielding. But it's too little, too late. Space is now a hostile environment, and Earth no longer has the magnetic barrier that once made near-orbit livable. Meanwhile, conspiracy forums go into overdrive. One post claims the satellites aren't falling. They're being pulled by something above the ionosphere. Another says the Earth's flat, And this is a proof the dome broke. One guy suggests the moon is gaining mass. You laugh, but not as confidently as you did last week. Even your smart home is acting weird. Timers don't sync. Thermostats recalibrate every hour. You say, "Good night" to your AI assistant, and it replies, "Recalculating time sequence," which is not what it said before. Remember when the calendar jumped from Julian to Gregorian and everyone lost 10 days? You think about that a lot now. Not because we're changing calendars, but because we've lost something that used to keep time for us without us even noticing. The satellites fall quietly, but the silence feels heavier every night. The first time you see it with your own eyes, it's beautiful. Not scary, not ominous, just stunning. You're outside one night, brushing your teeth half asleep, and the sky above you erupts in color. Long green ribbons arc from horizon to horizon. Pink pulses ripple like watercolors across the stars, and directly overhead a swirling vortex of violet and gold dances in slow motion. It doesn't feel like danger. It feels like magic. You're not alone. Social media explodes with videos auroras over Rome, Seoul, Nairobi. Time-lapse footage shows cities painted in strange glowing hues. People lie on rooftops with phones pointed skyward. One TikTok goes viral, a guy in Mexico City yelling, "The aliens are here," as the clouds shimmer above him. But this isn't an alien invasion. It's just science. Spectacular, inconvenient, overexcited science. Auroras. Those beautiful lights happen when charged solar particles smash into atmospheric gases and make them glow. Usually, they're confined to the poles where Earth's magnetic field funnels particles down. Without that field, there's no funnel, just full sky access. So now the auroras are global. All day, all night. Some dim and ghost-like, some blazing like neon firestorms. A tourist attraction, if it weren't a symptom of slow planetary breakdown. Do you remember the Middle Ages? In 1582, terrified people in Lisbon reported seeing a great fire in the sky at night, not knowing it was an aurora. The records say crowds ran to churches convinced Judgment Day had arrived. The science didn't exist yet, but the awe did. Today, we understand what causes auroras, but that doesn't make them less eerie when they never go away. In cities, new health advisories roll out. Limit nighttime exposure to atmospheric light events, one notice says. The reasoning: the brightness confuses circadian rhythms. People are struggling to sleep. Farmers report cows producing milk at 2 a.m. Plants are flowering out of season. Biologists call it chronic photonic disruption. You call it annoying. And then come the strange side effects. Some people swear they hear the auroras. Not metaphorically, actually hear them. Soft, crackling, electric whispers, a faint rustling in the ears when the sky turns green. Scientists have long debated whether auroras can make sound. The consensus has been probably not. But now, they're not so sure. An amateur observer in Finland records synchronized electromagnetic spikes and audible clicks during a particularly intense auroral burst. He publishes the data. Half the internet calls him a fraud. The other half says he's cracked something important. Scientists still argue whether these sounds are real or just sensory illusions. Regardless, your dreams start getting weird. Maybe it's the light. Maybe it's the low-level radiation. Maybe it's just your brain inventing patterns because nothing feels normal anymore. But people everywhere report vivid hallucinatory dreams, floating cities, ghost trains. A woman with glowing hair who tells you what time it is, except it's always a different time. Reddit threads appear. Shared Aurora dreams. Some users describe eerily similar scenes. A glowing hallway. A spiral staircase made of ice. No explanation. No confirmation. Just the collective echo of minds, maybe possibly being rewired. Still, you try to enjoy the view. One night, you drive far out to a dark sky area. No streetlights, no buildings, just open land and a horizon like the edge of a snow globe. You lie back on the hood of your car and watch as blue and red snakes twist through the clouds. It's impossible to be afraid and mesmerized at the same time. But you are. Both. And then you notice something new. The auroras aren't always random now. Sometimes they form shapes, rings, waves, a slowly shifting triangle that hovers for hours before unraveling. Scientists call it a plasmaspheric hiss structure. Sounds fancy, sounds harmless, but deep inside it feels like the planet is trying to say something or scream. Meanwhile, urban legends explode. Some say prolonged exposure to the auroras causes personality shifts, that your dreams bleed into your waking thoughts. One forum user insists he lost 2 hours staring at the sky, only to wake up sitting on his lawn covered in frost. He jokes, "The sky downloaded something into me." He gets 1 million likes. Some rural towns install blackout curtains citywide. They say it's to protect sleep cycles, but rumor spreads that it's to keep something from seeing inside, something in the light. And even though you laugh at this, you double-check your blinds before bed. Governments try to reassure. Press conferences show experts with slightly too wide smiles, explaining that auroras are natural phenomena. One minister uses the phrase optical novelty, which is the kind of phrase no one has ever used in real life before. Still, the lights keep coming and changing. On the 22nd night, a global live stream of auroras crashes YouTube servers. The sky over Tokyo forms what looks unmistakably like a perfect spiral. Over Cape Town, the lights dance in a way that mimics sound waveforms. A musician samples the video and calls it the song of the dying magnet. It goes platinum. You think about how humans once thought auroras were spirits. In Norse mythology, they were the reflections of Valkyrie's armor. In Aboriginal Australian lore, they were fires lit by ancestors. Somehow, those old myths feel less ridiculous now. Because when the sky won't stop glowing, and nothing's quite the color it should be, it's hard not to feel like something otherworldly is trying to get your attention. Or maybe you're just tired. It's hard to sleep under a sky that won't turn off. It starts with a nosebleed, not yours. Some guy on a subway platform staring up at a flashing ad screen when his nose just starts dripping. He's fine. A little freaked out, but fine. But the next day, it happens again to someone else. Then, someone throws up in the middle of a hardware store. Another has a seizure during a morning jog. They're not connected, not at first. But quietly, the numbers start to add up. Hospitals report a rise in unexplained anomalies. Not a pandemic, not an outbreak, just oddities. Elevated white blood cell counts. Sudden fatigue. Headaches that feel more like pressure than pain. CT scans begin revealing strange patterns in neural activity. And then come the cancers. It's not an epidemic, not yet. But doctors are seeing spikes in rare forms of leukemia, especially among airline crews, telecom workers, and people living at higher altitudes. Scientists knew this would happen eventually. Without the magnetic field to deflect cosmic rays and solar particles, radiation exposure is up, way up. The problem isn't that the rays are everywhere. It's that they're subtle, invisible, constant. You're basically living inside a very slow microwave. Except instead of cooking dinner, it's slowly mutating your DNA, and you're not even in the worst place. Astronauts on the ISS have already been evacuated. Their radiation sensors went from green to orange to red in under a week. The official story says they're just rotating out for maintenance. But you've seen the footage, they looked scared. Do you remember Chernobyl? After the reactor blew, radiation sickness began as nausea and fatigue. Invisible damage piling up until the body just gave out. Now, no one's glowing in the dark. But everyone is glowing in a different way. Exposure is cumulative, and you're soaking in it. Still, most governments downplay the effects. Radiation thresholds are quietly revised upward. Safe limits become acceptable exposure ranges. Airline crews now wear dosimeters. Pilots log fewer hours. Flight attendants wear long sleeves. You meanwhile start to notice small changes. Your sleep is lighter. You're more irritable. Your phone battery drains oddly fast. You joke it's the auroras charging your brain, but the humor doesn't land. One fringe study suggests that chronic radiation exposure might enhance certain neurological pathways. It speculates that long-term adaptation to heightened background ionization may result in enhanced sensory input. You laugh. Then you realize you did hear that static crackle when the sky flared green last night, and your dreams are definitely weirder. Radiation isn't just about cancer. It affects the brain, alters neurotransmitters, increases oxidative stress. Some neurologists whisper about the rise in microseizures, brief flashes of lost time, missed words, sudden déjà vu. One nurse says it feels like time hiccups. Another calls it sky lag. Scientists still argue whether these effects are direct or psychosomatic. But when enough people report the same hallucinations, brief flashes of lights in their periphery, hearing whispers, during geomagnetic storms, something shifts from anecdote to pattern. Schools begin to adapt. Outdoor recess becomes optional. Metal shielding is installed around high-voltage classrooms. A new standardized test asks students to interpret wavy lines rather than numbers. Sensory adaptability metrics, they say. A fancy way to prepare kids for a world that's mutating right under their feet. And then, slowly, the plants begin to change. A gardener in Oregon posts a video of tomatoes that turned blue. Not rotten, just blue. Lab tests show altered pigmentation, minor genetic drift, nothing dangerous. But blue tomatoes. A vineyard in France reports grapes maturing 2 months early. A forest in Norway seems to be growing toward the north, no one knows why. A botanist shrugs and says maybe they miss the poles. Without magnetic cues and consistent radiation patterns, nature begins to improvise. You notice it too. Houseplants start leaning oddly. Your aloe blooms early. Mushrooms in your backyard start clustering in spirals instead of rings. Some people believe it's beautiful evolution in real time. Others build underground greenhouses just in case. And it's not just plants. A biologist studying sea turtles in Costa Rica reports that hatchlings normally guided by Earth's magnetic field now crawl in random directions. Some head inland. Some just spin in circles. Whole generations lost to an invisible failure. Remember the pigeons. They're not coming back. Animal behaviorists are beginning to release reports under vague names like magnetoreceptive drift in migratory species. the reality. The natural GPS that many animals rely on is gone, permanently, and no one knows what the long-term effect will be, but you suspect extinction. Quiet, uneventful, like a light dimming slowly. So you keep living, breathing, glancing up, wondering how many cosmic particles just passed through your body in the last 10 seconds. You feel fine, but you felt fine yesterday, too. The world still turns. The sky still glows. But the question lingers. What does it mean when every breath contains just a little more space than before? You wake up one morning, and the sky feels thinner, not visually, not in color or texture, but in a way you can't describe. The clouds look nervous. The air feels stretched, as if the atmosphere itself is holding its breath. And in a way, it is, because now, without a magnetic field to shield it, Earth's atmosphere is being sanded away slowly, silently, by the solar wind. It's not a sudden loss, no dramatic whoosh of air being sucked into space, just a gradual invisible peeling, layer by layer like a sunburn on a planetary scale. The process is called atmospheric stripping, and it's exactly as gentle and horrifying as it sounds. You remember how Mars ended up the way it is, barren, dry, a giant dust ball echoing with the ghost of an ancient ocean. Billions of years ago, Mars had an atmosphere, even liquid water. But it didn't have a protective magnetic field. So, when the solar wind came knocking, it blew the Martian sky away molecule by molecule. Now it's our turn. Upper atmospheric measurements show the exosphere is expanding, and not in the good way. Atoms in the thermosphere are being excited and kicked into higher velocities. Some escape entirely. Satellites measure the outflow and return terrifying graphs, a slow but steady hiss of gas into space. Think of it like Earth slowly losing its coat in the middle of a cosmic wind tunnel. You can't see this with your eyes, but you feel it. Breathing gets slightly less satisfying at high altitudes. Climbers on Everest report symptoms of altitude sickness sooner than usual. Balloon experiments burst prematurely. Commercial airlines quietly alter cabin pressurization guidelines. Scientists still argue whether this is temporary or permanent. Some say the Earth's core might kickstart a new magnetic field within a few centuries. Others believe this is the beginning of a long, irreversible slide into atmospheric decay. One paper, leaked before peer review, suggests that Earth may begin resembling Venus within 10 million years. Another claims that human industrial activity may ironically slow atmospheric stripping by increasing the density of greenhouse gases. So yes, pollution might be saving us from space. A little. Still, governments aren't taking chances. A joint initiative is launched to inject trace elements into the upper atmosphere, sacrificial atoms meant to take the brunt of solar wind bombardment. They call it atmospheric buffering. Critics call it spraying perfume on a burning building. And then there's the weird stuff. Remember the ozone layer? It's now a patchwork. Without magnetic field support, high-energy particles are interacting with the atmosphere in ways we've never modeled. New holes appear not just at the poles, but at random latitudes. Skin cancer rates tick upward. UV indexes spike even on cloudy days. You walk outside and feel the sunlight biting, like the sun has teeth now. SPF 100 becomes standard. Some people wear reflective cloaks. Others stay indoors during the day. One fashion startup releases anti-solar suits claiming they block cosmic particles. They look like metallic raincoats, from a dystopian K-pop video. They sell out in hours. Meanwhile, high-altitude ecosystems suffer. Birds begin migrating erratically, then stop altogether. Insect populations collapse in some areas, explode in others. The jet stream stutters. Weather patterns start getting confused. A freak storm floods a desert that hasn't seen rain in 30 years. A heat wave freezes in mid-July. You watch a live stream of fish raining from the sky in a coastal town. The explanation: updraft interference. Translation: the atmosphere is glitching, and the animals are glitching too. Some species begin changing migration routes. Some start avoiding areas with frequent auroras. Whales beach themselves en masse. Frogs start croaking at strange frequencies. One biologist describes it as ultrasonic panic. But what worries you most is the silence. On your morning walk, there are fewer birds, fewer bees. The air buzzes with less life. It's not extinction, not yet. Just withdrawal. A pulling away. Like the natural world is retreating to wait out something it doesn't understand. And through it all, people keep pretending this is normal. Schools stay open. Markets still function. Celebrities post sky selfies with #AuroraCore aesthetics. The apocalypse has never looked so Instagrammable. A billionaire announces a project to replenish atmospheric molecules via orbital aerosol units. Another says we need to terraform Earth. You pause and wonder if anyone notices the irony. One experimental lab proposes launching massive magnets into space to create an artificial magnetosphere. Another suggests underground living. A third proposes breeding high-altitude plants with glow-in-the-dark bacteria to restore atmospheric vitality. No one agrees on what that means, and quietly underground, a new kind of prayer begins. In old churches, people light candles and kneel beneath stained glass depictions of stars. In remote temples, monks chant at dawn beneath aurora-lit skies. Some whisper that Earth is being punished. Others think it's evolving. But you walk through thinning air and wonder how much sky will have left to breathe in 100 years or 100 days. At first, it seems like the animals are just confused. You hear stories. A cargo ship off the coast of Argentina hits a drifting pod of orcas, unusual for that time of year. Birds in Berlin start nesting in December. Monarch butterflies veer off course and land in Seattle. It's all so scattered, so minor, so random, until it's not, because the truth finally clicks into place without Earth's magnetic field animals that rely on magnetoreception. Those invisible compass needles inside their brains are completely lost. You notice it in your neighborhood first. The birds that used to gather on the power lines are gone. The morning songs are quieter. One day, you see a pigeon pacing in small, hesitant circles, like it's trying to remember something basic, like up versus down. And then there's the sea turtles. They were always quiet, ancient little mysteries, returning to the same beaches where they were born, guided by magnetic lines we can't even see. But now, they hatch and head toward highways, toward cities, toward anything that shines or hums or flashes. Entire generations vanish before reaching the surf. Marine biologists are desperate. They set up artificial magnetic fields on beaches, crude loops of copper wire, and generators trying to fake what the planet no longer provides. It works for some, but not enough. You read about a gray whale in Japan that swam into a canal and couldn't find its way out. It stayed there for 5 days, circling slowly until it starved. Local fishermen cried. They had grown up with the whale. called it Obasan, auntie. And the bees don't come back. That's when things turn. With bees gone, pollination rates drop. Some crops begin to fail. A few farmers try pollinating by hand using tiny brushes to paint pollen onto blossoms. It's inefficient. It's heartbreaking. One guy in Italy live streams his entire orchard, one blossom at a time. Thousands watch. No one laughs. Still, governments keep saying adaptation. They launch studies, white papers, proposals. One plan involves using drones to pollinate apple trees. Another suggests modifying plants to self-pollinate. Meanwhile, wild ecosystems begin to collapse in quiet waves. Migratory birds show up in places they shouldn't be. At times, they shouldn't come. One city installs rooftop netting to catch exhausted songbirds that keep slamming into windows. A child finds a dead robin with a broken beak and writes a poem about it. The poem goes viral. People weep. And then come the stranger stories. A school of fish swims in a perfect spiral for 2 hours, then sinks motionless to the bottom of a lake. Ants dig elaborate patterns in the dirt resembling magnetic field lines. Cows stand facing east and west with rigid intensity, like they're waiting for something. In labs, animal behaviorists are stunned. One report describes a species of mole rat, normally blind burrowing creatures, that now won't enter tunnels at all. Instead, they press their bodies to the surface and twitch, constantly, as if looking for something they've lost. Scientists still argue whether these behaviors are stress responses or true neurological disruption. One group insists we're watching magnetoreceptive systems collapse. Another believes we're witnessing evolution and fast-forward new instincts being born in real time. But either way, there's no denying it. Animals are abandoning their old patterns. Some seem to give up entirely. Others go feral. A flock of geese lands on a freeway and just stands there. Traffic backs up. Horns blare. No one moves them. Eventually, they leave on foot. One park ranger in Alaska says this: "The wolves howl less now. When they do, it's like they're not calling to anything, just remembering how to make the sound." And you start to wonder what we're losing, not just species or migrations, but rhythms, the quiet scaffolding of life's clockwork, the beat behind seasons, the pulse behind breeding cycles. Without magnetic cues, those invisible threads start snapping one by one. Still, some people find opportunity. A biotech company starts breeding genetically engineered salmon that don't migrate. Another trains dogs to guide flocks of birds into artificial flight paths. And somewhere in a skyscraper lab in Singapore, a synthetic magnetoreceptor is being implanted into pigeons, with names like MK North and Beta Pilot. You stare at a poster in the subway station. It shows a child pointing at a holographic globe and the words, "New directions for a directionless world." You're not sure whether to be impressed or terrified. Meanwhile, ancient myths begin to resurface. In some cultures, magnetic fields were thought to be spiritual currents, lines of energy that connected the earth to the sky, to gods, to ancestors. Now, with those lines gone, people begin to revisit those old beliefs, not as religion, but as ritual. Orientation ceremonies, sky maps drawn in chalk, compass dances. It might seem silly. But when the real compass breaks, people make their own. And maybe that's all we can do. You take a walk at dusk. The sky above you glows faintly, not from the setting sun, but from the ever-present aurora. A fox trots by, pausing mid-step as if deciding which way is forward. You lock eyes for a second, and you realize it's just as lost as you are. It begins with a flicker. A streetlight blinks off, then on again. A traffic signal resets in the middle of rush hour, sending cars into a honking frenzy. A friend tells you their smart doorbell keeps ringing itself, no one outside, just endless phantom chimes. You shrug it off at first. Power grid issues aren't exactly new, but then you notice it happening everywhere. The electrical world is no longer stable. You open your fridge and the interior light pulses for no reason. Your phone charges slower than it did last week. Digital clocks drift a few seconds off each day. Your Wi-Fi router hums louder, then quieter, then louder again, like it's trying to breathe through syrup. This is what happens when you remove Earth's protective force field. The solar wind doesn't just hit the planet. It seeps into the bones of your technology. We've always lived in an electromagnetic bubble. Your gadgets, your cities, your entire digital life. It all assumes a level of planetary stability that is no longer present. And now, with solar particles constantly sneaking through the atmosphere, the delicate balance between electrons and circuits starts to wobble. A moderate solar flare. Nothing. Earth hasn't seen before hits the upper atmosphere, and suddenly transformers across the northern hemisphere groan like old beasts. Some explode, others melt. One catches fire in a town you've never heard of, but it trends anyway. The footage is grainy, dramatic, and horrifyingly common. You remember the Quebec blackout of 1989? A geomagnetic storm knocked out power to 6 million people in under 2 minutes. That was with a magnetic field. Now, the same storm would plunge entire continents into darkness. And that's not hypothetical. The term rolling blackout becomes a permanent part of your vocabulary. Power authorities scramble to regulate demand. At first, it's just 20-minute outages, then hours, then entire days in some areas. Urban centers try to adapt solar microgrids emergency storage, but rural regions suffer. People buy generators again. Candle sales spike. Governments try to reassure. This is a manageable transition, they say. But the phrase catches on like a joke. People spray paint it on blackout shelters. Meme it under videos of elevators stuck mid-floor. Some even print t-shirts. Manageable transition. Classic. The aviation industry takes another hit. With unreliable GPS aircraft must rely on old-school radio navigation. VOR beacons dead reckoning, even celestial references in extreme cases. Some pilots joke they're flying like it's 1943. Some aren't joking. Meanwhile, container ships in the Pacific are delayed for weeks. Logistics grind down. Supermarkets quietly increase delivery windows. You don't run out of food, but you notice the lettuce is browner, the milk more ambitious, and then come the navigation failures. You're driving one night and realize your car's compass has stopped pointing north. Not just wrong frozen. You reset it. Nothing. You try a magnet. It spins. Great. Magnetometers across the planet begin reporting nonsense. Ships wander slightly off course, recalibrating every few hours. Drones drift. Surveyors start using landmarks again. Hikers rely on moss and shadows. It's poetic. It's wildly inconvenient. You hear about a luxury cruise that accidentally rerouted 600 miles off path before anyone noticed. Passengers thought it was part of the experience. The captain did not. Rail networks struggled too. Some trains use magnetic sensors for speed regulation and switching. Those systems now experience ghost signals, phantom activations, that cause unnecessary braking or, in some cases, incorrect track assignments. It's not chaos, just friction. Constant, growing friction. And yes, your phone is dying faster. Battery chemistry doesn't love radiation. Neither do processors. Chip degradation becomes a hot topic. Some manufacturers release solar-hardened models, but they're clunky, overpriced, and melt during over-the-air updates. One model goes viral for exploding in a subway. You go back to your flip phone for a week. It feels oddly honest. Banks suffer quietly. High-frequency trading becomes unpredictable. Transaction times drift by milliseconds, which is enough to cause ripples. Finance people start muttering about temporal desync and quantum flux errors. Most of them don't even know what that means, but it sounds cool. The economy wobbles, but doesn't collapse. Yet. And then there are the whispers. A few engineers deep in the infrastructure trenches begin to notice a pattern. A kind of rhythmic distortion in electronics, like certain devices are syncing to something external. Untraceable pulses, bursts of static at regular intervals. No one knows what's causing it. Some say it's harmless background noise, now louder without magnetic shielding. Others believe Earth is becoming more electrically porous, less protected from ambient cosmic signals. One guy swears he got a text from a dead phone. It just said, "Still here." Scientists still argue whether these anomalies are real or just a mass case of techno-hysteria. But they're happening. And every time another router fries or a drone flies into a building, the argument gets harder to ignore. Meanwhile, the old analog tech starts making a comeback. Typewriters, wind-up watches, paper maps, slide rules. It's not retro, it's resilient. A whole subreddit forms around the idea of electromagnetic minimalism. You join for the memes. You stay for the guide on how to rebuild a crystal radio from junk drawer parts. One night, your lights flicker and you wait to see if they'll come back. They do, but slower, dimmer, like the power is thinking it over. And you realize this is the new normal, a planet, where tech is always one solar sneeze away from collapse. Your doctor says everything looks fine. Your blood work is within range. Your EKG normal. No tumors, no inflammation, no obvious red flags. Just that quiet, familiar phrase. It's probably stress, but deep down you know something's off. You've been tired lately. Not sleepy, foggy. Like someone's taken the sharpness knob on your brain and turned it all the way down. You forget things mid-sentence. You misplace items you just put down. A mild headache hums behind your eyes most days. But the worst part, everyone else seems to be experiencing the same thing. It's as if humanity has developed a shared background illness. Not lethal, not dramatic. Just a kind of low-grade deterioration. And it's no mystery why. Radiation levels are climbing. The longer Earth goes without its magnetic field, the more cosmic and solar radiation penetrates the atmosphere. That radiation doesn't always kill outright. Sometimes it whispers its way into your cells. One mutation here, one transcription error there. Little DNA typos that accumulate over time. And when enough of those pile-up systems start to fray, hospitals begin to report odd trends. Increased rates of autoimmune conditions. Sudden spikes in rare skin cancers. A subtle uptick in cataracts. Yes, cataracts. Apparently, the eyes are especially sensitive to radiation. One ophthalmologist quips, "We're all going to need sunglasses and bifocals." No one laughs. Meanwhile, researchers publish a new study suggesting that increased radiation might suppress immune function. It doesn't make you sick, it makes you more available to sickness. Like leaving the front door unlocked and hoping the neighborhood is quiet. Scientists still argue whether we're seeing the early stages of radiation-induced health decay, or just the psychological wear of living through this. The uncertainty, the auroras, the dreams. Oh, and those dreams, they've escalated. People start describing shared dream experiences. Groups of strangers across continents all report walking through the same glowing hallway, or standing in a forest lit by stars that move like insects. Some call it mass hysteria. Others think it's neurological feedback brains subtly rewired by cosmic influence. A university in Iceland begins running a dream registry. You can submit your nocturnal visions anonymously. It now has over 500,000 entries. Researchers find commonalities. They don't publish them, and then the memory lapses start to go public. Live television anchors forget what city they're in. A weatherwoman in Belgium zones out mid-forecast and calmly says, "The moon is very loud today," before blinking back into place. Viral videos emerge of influencers spacing out for full minutes during live streams. They laugh it off. So does the audience. But you've seen it in your friends, too. A neighbor tells you about forgetting how to start his car, not because of memory, but because the act itself felt foreign, like it didn't belong to him. You nod, and don't mention that last week you stood in the kitchen holding a spoon and couldn't remember whether you'd already eaten dinner. One neuroscientist proposes a theory, cosmic fog. She believes prolonged radiation exposure may be disrupting tiny neural circuits, not killing cells, just interfering. Imagine trying to listen to a podcast while someone gently taps on your headphones every few seconds. That's what your brain is doing now. And in children, the effects are stranger. Teachers report attention spans shortening dramatically. Not just distraction absence, like the lights are on, but no one's driving. Parents begin homeschooling again, not out of fear, but frustration. Some kids start drawing constellations they couldn't possibly know. One draws a perfect recreation of the southern sky from 12,000 years ago. A psychologist says, "They're not malfunctioning, they're adapting." The sentence gets quoted in headlines, and in survivalist forums, and in dreams. Still, the body is resilient. Some people seem unaffected. Some thrive. Athletes continue to perform. Artists create feverishly. One woman in Estonia writes 300 pages of poetry in a week. A sculptor in Morocco carves a statue that glows faintly under auroral light. No one can explain it. Fringe theories multiply. Some claim humans are evolving into a post-magnetic species. Others say the radiation is awakening dormant parts of the brain. A few even believe it's unlocking hidden memories, data written in bone. Reddit goes wild. Conventions form, merch is printed, and yet, beneath the excitement, there's still that hum of decline. Insurance companies quietly adjust their policies. Premiums increase for those in high-altitude cities. New clauses appear. Excludes radiation-related neurological events. Translation: you're on your own. You find yourself thinking about time differently. Not just hours or days, but decay. How long until your body starts showing symptoms? How many cosmic rays does it take to scramble a memory? And is it already happening? Your doctor still says it's stress, and you still pretend to believe them. But each night, under the glowing sky, you wonder if your body is becoming a story someone else will try to decode. And if they do, will they recognize what used to be human? You stand outside one night, looking up, and wonder what's up there. Still worth going to. Space, the final frontier. Humanity's dream of expansion, of stepping beyond Earth and colonizing the stars, it was already ambitious. Now, without a magnetic field, it's becoming suicidal. Because the truth is harsh, without Earth's magnetic field, space travel is now a death sentence. Not immediately, not dramatically, just quietly impossible. The problem isn't the rockets, or the fuel, or the math. We've solved those. The problem is the radiation. Cosmic rays, solar wind, bursts of high-energy particles that used to bounce harmlessly off Earth's magnetic umbrella. Now, there's no umbrella, just rain. A sharp, invisible rain of death. Remember the Apollo missions. Those brave astronauts crossed the Van Allen belts, the donut-shaped zones of trapped radiation around Earth, and spent only brief moments exposed. They got lucky. But even then, some reported seeing flashes of light behind their closed eyes. That was cosmic radiation hitting their retinas. Now, imagine astronauts launching into space with no Van Allen belts. No shielding, just raw exposure. And the sun. The sun flares. It burps streams of charged particles that would melt unprotected electronics, fry nervous systems, and scramble communication like a microwave cooking a walkie-talkie, which is why the International Space Station has been evacuated permanently. It just couldn't be shielded fast enough. NASA called it a hibernation mode, but everyone knows it's abandoned. There's no plan to bring it back. The few private companies still flirting with lunar missions are quietly halting. You read one headline, Mars is postponed. Another, low Earth orbit declared inhospitable. And you remember how excited people were about Mars. Colonies, domes, Martian farms, Elon tweets. But now, Mars is just a red dot behind a curtain of radiation that no one wants to peek through anymore. Still, there are dreamers. A Russian billionaire announces a proposal to build orbital radiation bunkers, rotating space habitats lined with meters of water and lead. The cost? Astronomical. The practicality? Laughable. But the dream? Still burning. In Tokyo, an aerospace startup suggests underground moon bases as a workaround dig down away from the storm, but launching enough shielding materials without being cooked en route. That's the problem. Every trip to space now has a countdown timer attached to it. Maximum safe exposure, 48 hours. Do you remember Valery Polyakov, the Russian cosmonaut who spent 437 days aboard the Mir space station? That kind of endurance is now impossible. He would have cooked like a baked potato with Wi-Fi. And it's not just manned missions. Unmanned satellites struggle too. Space-based telescopes like Hubble and James Webb begin failing faster than expected. Detectors warp. Lenses cloud. Photonic data gets corrupted by solar noise. Some try shielding upgrades, but the radiation finds new ways in. Ground-based telescopes are upgraded in response, but Earth's changing atmosphere warps their view too. Cosmic observation enters what scientists start calling the murky era. You remember reading that Voyager 1, launched in 1977, is now in interstellar space, still beeping faintly like a distant senile grandparent. But even that kind of long-term exploration becomes a relic. We're no longer expanding outward, we're retreating inward. Training programs for astronauts are downsized. Space agencies refocus on Earth monitoring. The phrase human spaceflight becomes nostalgic, like dirigibles or Concorde flights. Beautiful dreams that cost too much to survive. One astronaut turned author releases a memoir titled Gravity Wins. It climbs the bestseller list full of poetic laments about orbit's light and the slow surrender of a species that looked up for too long. A fringe community emerges, the grounded movement. They believe space was a mistake, that humanity was never meant to leave Earth. They write manifestos, record ambient music with titles like Atmospheric Submission and No Need for Stars. But not everyone gives up. A rogue coalition of scientists and engineers attempts an audacious project, an artificial magnetosphere. The idea: place massive magnetic field generators in orbit to simulate Earth's own protective shield. The plan is bold, insane, wonderful. They call it Project Aegis. The math barely works. The cost is unthinkable. The launch windows are brief, but they try anyway. You track their progress online like it's a TV show. One test fails. Another shorts out mid-deployment. A third, it lingers. A faint field is detected. Nothing strong enough to block radiation, but enough to curve it. It makes the news for 5 minutes. Then it's forgotten, because people are tired. Space feels far, dangerous, distant. And deep down, something shifts in the cultural psyche for the first time in centuries. Humans stop imagining the stars as a destination. You still look up sometimes, still see the moon, still wonder what's out there. But it feels more like a painting now than a place. Beautiful, meaningless, like a road that used to go somewhere before the bridge collapsed. It starts with a silence deep underground, not a metaphorical silence, a literal one. Seismometers, normally buzzing with constant micro-tremors from the planet's churning core, begin to fall strangely still, not completely dead but muted, like the Earth is holding its breath, waiting. You don't feel it immediately. Most people don't even notice. But in geology, labs around the world, alarms start going off not because of something happening, but because something isn't. The Earth's core, once a swirling molten conductor, spinning faster than the surface above it, has begun to slow. Normally, that core is the beating heart of our magnetic field. Picture an iron-rich ocean constantly rotating, throwing off magnetic currents like a planetary dynamo. That's what generates our magnetic shield. Or did. Now that movement is faltering. Geophysicists release quiet papers with loud implications. One researcher says we're watching the core decouple from the mantle. Another calls it geodynamic atrophy. Translation: the thing that used to generate the magnetic field is no longer moving fast enough to matter. And when the core stops talking, Earth listens differently. You remember how in school you learned about tectonic plates, earthquakes, volcanoes, all connected to the convection currents deep beneath our feet. But that engine, that hot, violent, glorious mess, it's cooling, or at least shifting. Strange things begin to happen. Volcanoes that haven't erupted in centuries start to gurgle. Others, normally active, go mysteriously silent. A geyser in Yellowstone erupts 4 times in one day, then stops completely for a month. Iceland's lava fields flicker with inconsistent energy. Scientists stop making predictions. One notable quake in Indonesia happens in reverse. Instead of one shockwave, it comes in pulsing waves, like the planet is hiccuping. And then there are the tremors. You don't always feel them, but they're strange rhythmic pulses that don't match any known seismic pattern, almost like the Earth is vibrating to a beat no one recognizes. They show up in Chile, then in Namibia, then in Japan, all on the same day. One seismologist compares the readings to a metronome buried 1,000 kilometers below the crust. The data is dismissed by major institutions, but underground forums pick it up. Earth's heartbeat returns. One headline reads. Others call it Gaia's Morse code. Some say the planet is warning us, or mourning us. Meanwhile, magnetic anomalies begin to appear in rocks. Yes, rocks. In certain regions, handheld compasses begin acting weird. Not everywhere, but near outcrops, hillsides, cliff faces. It's as if the Earth is trying to remember how to be magnetic, but in all the wrong places. Scientists call it localized crustal memory. One paper even refers to it as magnetic scar tissue. The Sahara, oddly enough, becomes a hotspot. Satellite magnetometers pick up faint residual fields, ghosts of magnetic activity, long extinct. No one knows why. Some say it's because that region was once part of a supercontinent, storing ancient magnetic patterns, like a fossil record of the invisible. And then comes the weirdest part. Navigation animals begin clustering there. Birds, turtles, even eels. They don't survive long in the desert, obviously, but they arrive, as if called, as if drawn. One drone video shows a spiraling formation of starlings over a Moroccan plateau, perfectly circular, silent, relentless. Then they fall dead from heat. The footage is banned on most platforms. Scientists still argue whether this is a response to crustal magnetism or mass neurological breakdown. Either way, something is pulling attention back to the planet's oldest scars. And beneath it all, the magnetic poles. They're drifting, again, faster. In the past, the North Pole used to move a few kilometers a year. Then it picked up speed tens of kilometers. Now it jumps erratically. 1 week it's near Greenland. The next, it's veering toward Siberia. But it doesn't matter anymore. Without a functioning field, the poles are just concepts. Coordinates on a ghost map. Still, old myths come crawling out of the rocks. In ancient cultures, the Earth's core was sacred. The Greeks called it Tartarus, the deepest part of the underworld. The Hopi believed a great fire lived at the center of the world. In Norse mythology, there was Vergelmir, the spring beneath the roots of the world tree. Now, modern scientists use sonar and particle imaging to try to see what's going on inside. What they find: a subtle but measurable shift in core density. Not cooling, not solidifying, but thickening, slowing, as if the great planetary engine has started to rust. One theoretical physicist, banned from peer-reviewed journals, publishes an article suggesting Earth is transitioning into a new internal state. Like a hard drive, he writes, finishing its last write cycle. He's mocked. But late one night under a flickering streetlight, you place your palm against the ground. And for just a second, you feel it. Not warmth, not vibration, stillness. The kind that makes your heart speed up for no reason. The kind that reminds you the planet you're standing on is alive and maybe getting ready to die a little, or just go quiet. It begins with a meme, a picture of a compass, spinning wildly overlaid with the words, "North is just a suggestion now." It goes viral. It's funny, but it doesn't feel like a joke anymore. Because while scientists are arguing over crustal anomalies and magnetic drift, something else is happening, something you never expected. The old beliefs are coming back, not in textbooks, in whispers. All around the world, people begin digging up ancient stories. Magnetism in many cultures wasn't just a force, it was sacred. A bridge between the earth and the stars, a directional soul. And now, that science has fallen strangely silent, mythology begins to fill the vacuum. It starts innocently enough. Articles about Chinese lodestones, magnetic stones, once believed to guide the spirit. Tales of Egyptian priests using earth energy to locate sacred sites. You remember reading how the Great Pyramids are aligned with magnetic north. Maybe that was just clever architecture. Maybe not. Suddenly, magnetic lore is trending. You scroll past a post titled, "The Axis Mundi is Broken." Someone selling hand-carved compasses aligned to the true pulse of the Earth. You laugh until you realize the comments are filled with people swearing that these compasses work. Not in the literal sense, but in the "my headaches are gone" sense. You watch a live stream from the Andes. A group of shamans perform a ceremony, chanting around a giant iron meteorite believed to contain sky power. They claim it speaks louder now, that it hums. One of them says the gods are trying to find their way back in. In an abandoned church in Poland, a priest holds mass beneath a glowing aurora. No lights, no electricity, just the shifting sky and an iron cross. His sermon, simple. When the field is gone, the spirit must learn to guide itself. You see the clip online. It goes viral. Again. And soon the theories flood in. Some claim Earth's magnetic field was never natural. It was an artifact, a machine, a byproduct of some ancient buried civilization. They point to the alignment of ancient sites, stone circles, forgotten ruins that line up with geomagnetic anomalies. They knew the forums whisper. They tried to warn us. Others talk about the return. They believe the loss of the magnetic field is the fulfillment of prophecy. Mayan calendars, Hopi timelines, biblical omens. Everyone picks their myth. Everyone finds a match. Still others think this is the correction. They say humanity's compass was always spiritual, and Earth just removed the distraction. No more GPS, no more poles. No more pretending we knew where we were going, just instinct. One community in rural Canada goes completely off-grid. They call themselves the Aligners. They live in iron-clad domes and speak only in cardinal directions. The Earth will speak, they say. We just need to stop shouting over her. Meanwhile, urban legends pile up. People claim auroras whisper names. That if you stand barefoot on specific stones during an auroral bloom, you'll hear directions not in words, but in emotion. I felt pulled east, one man writes. So I walked and found the lake I dreamed about as a child. Psychologists try to explain it away. Stress hallucinations, cognitive drift. But the stories keep coming. A pilot crash lands in a forest and walks 3 days in the wrong direction, only to return to the wreckage circling the same valley over and over. He says, "It was like the forest didn't want me to leave." His compass later analyzed had demagnetized entirely. Even animals seem drawn to these hotspots. Places with no explanation but strange resonance. Foxes sleep in iron-rich caves. Birds circle ancient dolmens. Dogs refuse to enter magnetic dead zones. And then come the builders. All over the world, people start constructing new monuments, not for worship, but for orientation. Giant compass roses made of stone and steel. Iron towers pointing toward the last known magnetic north. Labyrinths designed to be walked barefoot during geomagnetic storms. They say the Earth may not remember where north is, but we can. Scientists still argue whether any of this means anything. Most call it pseudoscience. Some quietly admit they're not so sure. After all, we've relied on magnetism for navigation technology, and timekeeping for centuries. Why not for meaning? And deep down, maybe we always did. You start keeping a stone in your pocket, just iron-rich basalt. Found it on a trip. Feels good to hold. Sometimes during strong auroras it vibrates a little, or maybe that's just in your head. But still, you don't drop it. You start walking more by instinct. Not Google Maps, not street signs, just gut. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But when it does, there's something beautiful about it. Like your body's remembering something your brain forgot. One night, you sit beneath a sky so green it hurts. The trees are quiet. No traffic, no hum. And for a moment, you swear you feel the planet turn. Not spin, not rotate. Turn toward something. Like a ship with no compass chasing a memory of direction. Not because it knows the way, but because it refuses to stop moving. The first time the proposal leaks, people laugh. Not a chuckle, a full collective online belly laugh. The headline reads, "Humanity to build new magnetic field." Sure, right after we finish our sky elevator and install air conditioning on the moon. But the paper's real. So is the proposal. And the people behind it are serious. They're not fringe researchers. They're not dreamers. They're plasma physicists, aerospace engineers, geodynamo theorists, people who used to get ignored until the planet lost its shield. They're calling it the coil array. The idea build a network of superconducting coils, enormous magnetic loops that encircle the planet at strategic points buried in the ground, mounted on high-altitude platforms, and in some cases placed in orbit. When powered together, they would generate a synthetic magnetosphere. Not perfect, not planetary in scale, but directional, contained, useful. In short, humanity is trying to fake Earth's magnetic field. The logistics are absurd. Superconducting materials must be cooled near absolute zero. The coils must be stabilized against solar bombardment. Powering them requires fusion-level energy, and any misalignment could cause catastrophic magnetic interference. But they're building them anyway. You watch the first broadcast from Array Site 1, a barren plateau in Patagonia, dotted with enormous black rings the size of airport runways. When activated, they shimmer faintly. The air warps around them. Birds avoid the sky above. A researcher throws a handful of iron filings into the field and watches them hang mid-air like frozen sparks. It's not science fiction anymore. It's just science. Barely. Other nations join in. India constructs inland towers lined with electromagnetic coils. Norway reactivates its abandoned auroral research stations and retrofits them into magnetic beacons. A Japanese team launches a low-orbit satellite wrapped in superconducting tape. They call it MagSail-1. It doesn't survive re-entry. Still, the idea spreads. If Earth can't shield itself, maybe we can do it for Earth. The real breakthrough comes from an unexpected place, a team of high school students in Nairobi. They develop a smaller scale prototype, cheap, modular, and surprisingly efficient. It only works on the size of a small village, but for that village compass needles point north again. GPS stabilizes. Radios stop hissing. Their design gets copied. Fast. Local bubbles, they're called. Man-made zones of magnetic stability. A temporary patch, like Band-Aids for the planet. And for the first time in years, people feel something almost forgotten: orientation. Still, it's not without consequences. A mining town near one of the early test coils reports strange effects. Static electricity builds in walls. Neon signs glow without power. Hair stands up in waves. One kid floats a paperclip across the kitchen table with his hand. That part's probably fake. Probably. Elsewhere, animals begin to return slowly, cautiously to stabilized zones. Birds stop spiraling. Bees resume structured foraging. Even migratory fish respond to artificial currents. A few ecologists cry on camera. It's like watching the world reboot, one says. And it's not just the tech. People start building magnetically aligned cities, grid layouts designed around artificial north, buildings with Faraday shielding and compass towers. Schools teach magnetic orientation again, not with apps, just hands, needles, and patience. One group in Finland begins constructing a full-scale magnet temple, a dome lined with iron and quartz where people can sit and feel the Earth's pulse again. Skeptics roll their eyes, but even they admit it's peaceful. Of course, not everyone agrees. A growing resistance movement emerges. They call themselves the True Drift. Their philosophy: let the planet change. Let humans adapt. The field was a crutch, their leader says in a pirate radio broadcast. It's time to walk on our own. They sabotage coil installations, disrupt experiments, spread doubt, and somewhere deep in the Pacific, an unregistered vessel launches an unauthorized satellite wrapped in magnetically polarized plates. No one knows who sent it, but its field readings are unstable. Nearby islands report compass anomalies. One pilot describes it as flying through static soup. Scientists still argue whether we should be doing this at all. Some warn that artificial fields could interact with tectonic activity or worsen atmospheric stripping if improperly placed. Others say we're playing with forces we barely understand. A few quietly admit they'd rather take the risk than watch the planet slowly unravel. Meanwhile, a child in Canada grows up in a local bubble. She's never known true magnetic silence. In her world, compasses work, birds return auroras dim. Her parents tell her bedtime stories of the quiet years when the sky hummed and no one knew which way was up. She listens with wide eyes, and the next morning, she builds her own coil, 4 wires, 2 magnets, and a car battery. It's weak, unstable, but for 10 seconds, her compass needle stops twitching. She smiles, because the truth is, even if we can't fix the Earth's core, maybe we can fix what it gave us. Maybe direction doesn't have to come from below. Maybe we can build it with our hands. You wake up, and the air smells odd, not polluted, not chemical, just unfamiliar. Like the scent of an old house that's never been opened or rain falling on dust that hasn't moved in centuries. You check the forecast. It says clear skies. But outside, the clouds twist in long, looping arcs shaped like corkscrews. The wind feels sluggish. The sun casts double shadows. You rub your eyes. Still there. The climate is misbehaving. At first, the changes were subtle. Seasons shifting by a few days. Storms growing slightly stronger. But now, something deeper has broken. The atmosphere forever, in a delicate dance with solar energy radiation and magnetism, is learning new steps. And it's clumsy. Remember, Earth's magnetic field didn't just block solar radiation. It also helped regulate atmospheric circulation. It shaped the jet streams, guided ionospheric currents, influenced ozone formation. Without it, the balance tips, and the weather starts dreaming in strange directions. You read about a cyclone forming in the Mediterranean, a place that shouldn't get them. They're calling it a medicane. It spins the wrong way, gains power overnight, then dissolves over land without a trace. Meteorologists shrug. The models didn't see it coming. Elsewhere, the Arctic experiences a reverse melt. Temperatures dip far below freezing, and sea ice grows too fast. Ships are trapped. Polar bears, long struggling, are now confused by a sudden surge in territory. Scientists call it a feedback loop gone haywire. In the Sahara, rain falls for 8 days straight. The desert blooms like Eden. It's beautiful, it's terrifying, and no one knows if it will happen again, or if it just used up its one miracle. Tornadoes show up in new places. Southern England, the Alps, parts of southern Brazil. They move slower. Some don't move at all, just hang spinning in place like drill bits in the sky. And then come the cloud formations. They don't look natural. You see videos online, clouds shaped like spirals, hexagons, even full concentric circles. They pulse. They flicker. Some vanish in seconds. One even reversed direction mid-drift. No wind change, no warning. Climatologists scramble to explain it. One fringe theory suggests that without magnetic field lines to anchor the ionosphere, localized weather systems are becoming magnetically ungrounded. They call them free-roaming cyclonic identities. You call them clouds that don't know what they're doing anymore. Lightning, too, behaves differently. Strikes increase wildly. Not just during storms, but on sunny days, clear skies even during snow. One report documents upward lightning bolts, strikes that fire from buildings toward space, as if trying to return something. A skyscraper in Singapore catches fire from 3 strikes in one afternoon. The building is later renamed Astra Lux, the Light of the Stars. You see photos, charred glass, blackened steel, a glowing spiral of melted copper where the lightning hit. But the weirdest phenomenon, sky plasma. You see it one night while walking. A brief, silent curtain of light descends over the horizon, not like auroras. This one is red, dense. It hovers for 10 seconds, then vanishes. Others have seen it too. It's not lightning. It's not fire. It's not explainable. It just is. Scientists still argue whether it's a new interaction between charged particles and unregulated atmosphere, or something deeper. One paper dares to call it a pre-ionized sky veil. Another calls it a glitch in global thermodynamics. You don't even know what that means. Meanwhile, agriculture suffers. Crops that used to grow in steady rhythms now fight shifting weather. Some bloom too early. Others refuse to germinate. Farmers resort to underground greenhouses, hydroponics, climate-controlled domes. A new term appears, atmos farming. Food prices soar. Some plants mutate. One field of corn in Nebraska develops fluorescent roots. In South Korea, tomatoes begin changing hue, flashing between red and gold like slow traffic lights. Edible, yes. Normal, not remotely. And animals. They're still adapting, or trying to. Insects swarm erratically, sometimes suicidally. Moths spiral upward into the sky until they vanish. Frogs lay eggs in puddles that dry out in minutes. Birds build nests, abandon them, then return days later to empty shells. Your cat watches the window more now. But not the birds, just the clouds. One researcher jokes that Earth is entering its awkward teenage phase. Everything's growing too fast, acting out, not listening to itself. Another calls it atmospheric puberty. No one laughs. Not anymore. And through it all, you try to live normally. You wear a wide-brimmed hat, because the sun burns more fiercely now, even through glass. You walk under covered sidewalks. You keep emergency weather alerts on at all times, and you start paying attention to the wind, not the forecast, but the feeling. When it's too quiet, when it changes too fast, when it carries the scent of ozone and something you can't quite name, because the Earth's climate isn't dying, it's transforming, like a room rearranging itself while you sleep. It begins with a choice, not a big one, just small things. Do you wear the shielded jacket today, or risk the walk without it? Do you plant the early sprouts, or wait for the atmospheric bloom to pass? Do you charge your devices at night, and risk another flare-induced short, or stick to daylight just in case? Life on Earth hasn't ended, but it's no longer automatic. The planet, once a comfortable background character, now demands your attention. Every gust of wind, every shadow on the sidewalk, every shift in temperature, it all feels louder. Not because the Earth is screaming, but because it's no longer protecting you from what it used to hide. You're adapting. So is everyone else. Cities glow differently now. Shielded glass aurora blocking canopies, magnetically aligned districts. You remember how urban planning once revolved around traffic flow and public parks. Now, it's all about magnetic insulation particle sheltering and light-proof sleeping zones. Hospitals install subdermal dosimeters, tiny chips that flash if your body takes in too much radiation. Insurance plans include neurofog coverage. Schools issue compass training kits alongside lunch vouchers. Children learn which cloud formations mean stay indoors versus go out and look, but not for too long. Even homes are different. The new designs feature deep basements and iron-lined ceilings. Some families build sky gardens inside Faraday cages. Others live entirely underground. One woman on the news smiles from her reinforced greenhouse and says, "We gave up sunsets for food security. I still miss them, though." Meanwhile, personal tech adjusts. Phones built for this world now include solar filters, geomagnetic recalibrators, and dream shielding. That last feature is debatable, but ever since dreams became shared, some people prefer to block them. The dreams haven't stopped, by the way. You still see the glowing hallways, still hear the low hum in your sleep, still feel the tug, not painful, not frightening, just constant. A background pressure that seems to say, remember. Remember what? No one knows. And then, one night, a child in Argentina builds a tiny coil from copper wire and nails. It shouldn't work, but it does. For 27 seconds, the compass in her hand stabilizes. The sky above her dims. The wind calms. Her parents capture it on camera. It becomes the most shared video on Earth. The moment she whispers, "It's listening," you feel something in your chest. Hope. That's the thing, isn't it? Even in a world stripped of its compass, even on a planet leaking its atmosphere into space, humans don't stop building, or dreaming, or orienting. Even if north is a myth. Because maybe the magnetic field was never just about shielding us. Maybe it also taught us something deeper, that direction matters, that unseen forces can shape us, that alignment, real or imagined, is how we survive. Scientists still argue whether the field will ever return. Some say yes in a few 100,000 years. Others believe we'll adapt long before that. One physicist writes, Earth has always been temporary. We're just now feeling it. But that doesn't stop you from waking up tomorrow and planting a tree, or teaching your niece how to read a paper map, or sitting under an auroral sky waiting for a flash of green to pass before walking home. The earth is still turning, a little more wobbly, a little more uncertain, but turning. And maybe that's enough. So now, as we come to the close of this quiet journey, take a long, slow breath. Let your shoulders drop. Let your face soften. You're still here. You've made it through another orbit under a sky that's shifting in ways we're only beginning to understand. The lights above may pulse and shimmer with unfamiliar shapes. The wind might carry hints of ancient silence or future change. But you are grounded, even in a world that's learning how to stand again. Your feet still find the floor. Your breath still fills your lungs. Your thoughts, though tangled with questions, are part of something bigger, woven into the patterns of a planet that refuses to stop evolving. And maybe the direction you're looking for isn't out there anymore. Not north, not south, not in spinning needles or satellite maps. Maybe it's just inward now. A new compass made of memory and instinct and gentle, persistent hope. So rest now. Close your eyes. Let the static hum fade into background. The auroras will still be there tomorrow, painting dreams across the dark like quiet brushstrokes. And the earth, our weird, broken, stubborn earth, is still turning beneath you just as it always has. Sleep well, traveler. You've earned the stillness.